So today's episode is going to be an encouraging one to help you get out of that mood you might be in or that funk you might be in right now in this season with depression. The reason I wanted to do episodes like this is because I feel like more than educating you on what depression is and how it affects your life, I thought of these topics that we could talk about or that you might be going through right now that you don't realize that you're going through. And I think that they could be things that could help us out with our depression. So I'll let you jump right in. So the first thing I want to talk about is why we think our depression defines who we are. Like, we can't go back to living a normal life. And the reason I say normal life is because you had a life before depression. You were passionate about things, you loved going places, you hung out with your friends and family, you had no worry in the world. And then you started dealing with depression, and now that comes the negative thoughts and the emotions and the struggling and the fears, and now you're not hanging out with family so much and you're not doing those things you were so passionate about. And this almost becomes your new normal. Overall, now you start defining yourself with your depression. So now, instead of saying, I am who I am this, this, and this, you strictly go back to, I have depression, and this is who I am. But I think we need to stop doing that. We need to stop defining ourselves with depression. And I know that once you've dealt with it for months and years, it can almost be really hard to think of how life was before you were dealing with your depression, or to think what life would be like if you didn't struggle anymore and you didn't have the worries and the emotions and just everything was back to how it was before your depression. I know that it's hard to imagine, but the more you work at it, the more you'll understand that the life you had before you can definitely have now, but of course it's going to be different because you're dealing with your depression. You can still have the life you had before. You just have to find the ways to slowly start doing the things you loved before, like hanging out with your friends and doing the things that you were passionate about. It's finding those ways to get back to a normal life while still living with depression. Now this brings me to the second thing. We let this become our excuse for everything. And you know you've done it because I've done it. And let's not be ashamed. Sometimes it's okay to say no to hanging out or going places or doing things because you know your mind and you know the way you feel. So you know deep down when you had a really bad day and your friends or your family is like, oh, let's go do this, and you know that you're not going to have a good time, it's okay to just say, hey, no, maybe another time. But I'm talking about the times when you know that you're okay to go, but you don't go. Or you start canceling things and canceling plans just because you're letting your depression rule your life now. And I think that's when it gets tricky, because instead of telling the people that you love and your friends, like, hey, I'm going through a really bad day, my depression's hitting me really hard, we come up with excuses why we can't go, excuses that aren't even true, but we almost don't want our friends and our families and the people we love to know that we're struggling, and we don't want to bring that struggling with us. And sometimes I think that because we feel like we're in this mood and we feel like we're going through this, that if we go, we're not going to have fun. But if you think about it, sometimes that's not true. Sometimes you might go and you might not realize that this could help shift your mood and put you in a good mood, and you could end up having a great time. Now there are those times where we do go to things and we're like, maybe this will help shift my mood and make me feel better, and then it doesn't. Like I said in the last episode about depression, it's like you're physically there, but mentally you're not. So when you have those times when you go out and you feel that way, then you start to back off of actually going out. And this can be true for the things that you used to love or that we're passionate about. When your depression starts to affect those areas of your life, and now you're not enjoying the things that you used to do, and you're not passionate about those things anymore, it takes a toll on you. So instead of going out of your way to do them, and instead of being so passionate about that thing you were so passionate about, you just decide to put it on the back burner or just not to do it anymore, because your depression is making you feel so down that even if you try to do it, you're not going to be as into it as you were when you started doing it or when you were doing it at the time. And another thing too that I feel like it's almost like you want to go out and you want to do things and you want to do things you're passionate about, but it's like, how can you fake a smile and be in conversations and act like you're happy when really on the inside you almost feel like you're so sad and you're dying on the inside that like you can't wait to get home and be away from anybody. And I can say for me, because I have depression alongside my anxiety, when my depression's really bad, my anxiety gets really bad, and then when I'm out places I don't want to be there, so I kind of just want to be home. And for me, being at home is my safe place, and being curled up in bed is a safe place. And a lot of people who are dealing with depression have these safe places where they know they can go and feel completely 100% safe in that environment, or they know there are certain people that they can be around that they can be themselves with and talk about what's going on and feel completely safe. So we start to go back to those places or want to go back to those places because that's where we feel comfortable and feel like we can be ourselves. So another thing that comes along with making up excuses and letting it define who we are is the third thing. We let it ruin our days and run our lives, and I think this goes along with the excuses, because now you know when you've had depression long enough that if you wake up with it or something during the day triggers it, it affects the whole rest of your day, and you almost let it set the mood for the rest of your day too. So now if your friends or family do want to do something and you're already in that mood, you come up with excuses why you can't go. And I think for a lot of us, when we're in the hardest place of depression, we really let it control our days and our weeks and our months and how we feel and how we react to things and the conversations we have, because really we almost feel like we have no control over it, and we just kind of let it control everything in our life. And what I think is, like, because we let it do that, we need to try to find ways to not let it control our days and not let it control our moves. And I think that sometimes we want to try to figure out ways to counteract what's going on, but we either don't know how or we just simply don't want to. Because sometimes when we're really deep in it, we just kind of want to sit, and I don't know why we do it, but we do. And we don't want to get out of the funk, and we don't want to get out of the mood, so we just kind of let ourselves sit in it until it's too much, and then we just don't want to do anything about it. And that's why I think when you have those days where either you wake up like that or something triggers you, you just want to go home, you want to curl up in a ball, you want to curl up in a blanket, you want to watch TV, you want to eat a bunch of food. I'm not sure what you guys do when you feel that way, but those are some of the things that come in my head, is like you just don't want to be around anybody, so you just want to curl up in a blanket and be by yourself. Because ultimately, all we want to do is feel safe. And when we have those places and those people that we feel safe with, that's where we most likely and ultimately want to be. Another thing I think about too is that when we start letting it ruin our lives and we start letting it ruin friendships, and now we're not passionate about the things we were for, It's almost like we can't see what the future is going to hold, or what it would look like, or now we used to set goals for our lives and the things we want to do, but now we don't, because we almost feel like, what's the point? Why would I set goals, and why would I think about the future when I don't even know what the future is going to look like? I feel like my depression is just taking over, and like I said in the last episode too, for some there is no future, because they've gotten to the point where the future looks so glim and gloomy that there is no future. But I think once we start finding ways to cope with it, we can start setting small goals and start planning for the future, because we do have a future. No matter how you feel, no matter what season you are in with depression, you always have a future. So please set those goals, because you never know from a year or 2 or 3 from now where you might be. You might be in a better place than you were before. And I know it's hard to think about it when you're in the thick of things and it's so bad, but truly, you just have to really see yourself in that place and then start working towards that place, so then you can set those goals and you can have those dreams and you can get back to things that you're passionate about. So then that's where your future leads. Or you set up these goals and you set up this future that looks happy and great, where your depression isn't so bad and it's not controlling your life, and you work towards that future, because now you have something to look forward to. You set those goals, you set those dreams, you set that future, and that is where you're heading. So maybe for some of you, that's what you need to do to get out of that mood, to get out of that funk. You look in the future and you say, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to be doing with my life. I'm going to either be married, I'm going to have kids, or this is the career path I'm going to do, or the passion, I think that I'm so passionate about, that's where I'm going to go with my life. And that's what leads you every single day. So if you wake up in those moods, or you wake up feeling horrible, just think of that goal or that future that you're working towards, to help motivate you and inspire you to keep working on yourself and to keep going in that direction. Which finally leads me to the last topic. This is not who we are, and this is not who we're meant to be. The one thing we don't want people doing, but we also don't want ourselves doing, is defining us with our depression. Now again, there's a lot of people that have friends and families that don't know what they're going through. So when you start canceling plans or saying that you can't go do things, then eventually they just stop inviting you. Because truly they don't know what you're going through, because you haven't shared that information with them. But for the ones who have people in their lives who know what they're going through, start associating you canceling plans and not wanting to do things with your depression. And then that almost starts defining you, which is something you don't want to happen. But ultimately, this is because we're struggling. And we'd rather struggle alone than go somewhere and have somebody struggle with you, or feel your pain, or have to watch you go through what you're going through. No one with depression wants to struggle alone. But we do to prevent our loved ones from knowing the truth. And like I said in the last episode too, when you start opening up to someone that you can trust, it becomes easier. And that becomes your safe place. Even if you start going to a therapist and you start openly talking about how you feel, and then you start feeling more comfortable, that is now your safe place. So now you don't have to struggle alone. Your depression won't define who you are, because that's not who you are. You are someone who is brave and who knows they need the support and love of somebody who understands you. And I promise you that one day, even if you feel like you'll never have it, you'll have that support and you'll have that love. And that bravery will be passed on from that person to you. You're strong enough not to let your depression define who you are. And that's why I wanted to come up with this episode. because you are not your depression. You are somebody who can live a normal life without affecting you, as long as you learn the ways to start coping with it and finding the things that'll help you shift your moods on the days that get really bad. So ultimately, we shouldn't let our depression define who we are. That's why I came up with these 4 topics and 4 different reasons of why your depression doesn't define your life. So just maybe somebody needed to hear this today, or maybe they're going through that season of depression where they feel like it ultimately defines their life and who they are. Because I want you to realize that you are so much more than your depression. You should never let it define who you are or start slowly controlling and taking over your life. Because again, you are brave and you are strong. Right now you don't feel that way, or maybe you're starting to, and that's great. Because you are so much more than a person who struggles with depression. And I promise you that if you're in that season and you feel this way, one day things will get better and you'll find a way or a person or your safe place where you can truly be yourself, openly talk about what's going on, and start feeling more like yourself and start feeling more normal again. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you find it helpful, please leave a comment and let me know how it's helped you. Or subscribe so you'll get notifications when new episodes come up. So like always, I want you to remember that you are never alone and that I love you.